Hi, this is Crystal Cyrus from the OOTW podcast, and you're listening to Pop Goes Your World.
If you haven't already, subscribe on iTunes. And while you're there, please leave us a rating and review.
And now it's time for our feature presentation.
I'm Chris McBrien, and the pop culture from Generation X is everything to me.
And I'm Derek Myers, and I'm here to educate Chris on the great pop culture of today's generation.
Episode 313, 1999, the year in pop culture. Chris McBrien along with Derek Myers, and this is Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations. Just to pull back the curtain a little bit, every single time we have done this show, 313 episodes. Wow. Right before we go on and we hit record, I always say to Derek, let's have a good show, bud. Every time, I forgot to say it this time. First time in 300 episodes. So I just wanted to, let's have a good show. Okay.
All right. You bet.
This week, we wanted to do something a little bit different, Derek. We decided we're going to take a nostalgic look back at the year 1999 in pop culture, music, TV shows, movies, and all that stuff. So should be a lot of fun. But first, it's been a week since we last spoke, my friend. What pop culture have you been able to take in recently?
So I got a movie, a book, and a documentary.
Oh, good.
We'll start with the movie.
Sure.
And I got a TV. I'll talk a little bit. Let me start with TV. So,
okay.
I think I may have mentioned this last week on Netflix last week. A couple of new shows have dropped, second seasons of shows. So one of the shows that I enjoyed the first season of is called The Night Agent. Second season dropped. It's 10 episodes. I'm only 3 episodes in, so I won't really talk about that now. I'll get that on the next episode of our show, because by then I should have completed the whole run. But 3 episodes in, I'm enjoying it enough to want to keep watching. So that's all I can say about that one yet for now. Okay. The movie I saw, so I've mentioned this a lot in the last few podcasts. I've been watching a lot on Netflix, and then the algorithm says, hey, you liked this. Why don't you check out this? And I'm like, okay. So it gave me one of those. And the movie is called Self-Reliance. It's from 2023, so it's only a couple of years old. And the premise of this one is that this guy who's sort of living a boring, mundane life, he doesn't really have a lot going for him. A limo pulls up to him on the street, and the guy says, get in this limo. And then so he's like, sure, why not? He gets in the limo, and the guy says, how would you like to be on a internet game show where cameras will follow you around for a month and people will try and kill you? And if you live through the month, we'll give you $1 million. And he's like, well, why would I want to do that? And they said, the loophole is, as long as another person is within 5 feet of you, they can't kill you. Otherwise, you're fair game. And everything's going to be recorded on hidden cameras and stuff. And the guy thinks about it for about half a second. And he's like, yeah, my life sucks. Sure, why not? And then it goes from there. Now, it's got a lot of people you recognize that maybe aren't super famous, with the exception of Anna Kendrick, who is in it, but not like she's in it for like maybe 20 minutes. She's got a small part that sort of comes up.
And she's Canadian. We got to give her a show. Yeah.
Well, she's awesome. So, but anyway, the movie is written, produced, and directed and starring an actor named Jake Johnson. So I recognize him. I always remember him from the movie Tag. He's one of the Tag guys. But when people ask, like, you're like, how would you describe him? He always reminds me of Oscar Isaac. If Oscar Isaac had a younger brother that was a little less good looking and sort of looked a little rougher, that's how I always imagine this guy. And trust me, if you see a picture of him, you're going to go, oh, my God, that's a good description. So anyway.
Is Oscar Isaac the guy that played Poe Dameron?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, so, I knew something from new movies.
So anyway, this movie, I watched it on Netflix, called Self-Reliance. And it was pretty good. I mean, it was what it was. It's billed as a comedy, but it wasn't a ha-ha comedy. It was more the absurdity of the things the guy has to do to not get killed. And I don't want to say too much about it, because there are definitely more elements that add to the humor of it. But don't go into this one thinking, hey, I'm going to laugh my butt off for 90 minutes. It's not that kind of a comedy.
As we've discussed before, I think the whole concept of comedy is just lost these days.
Yeah.
Everyone seems to think this is a comedy, that's a comedy. It's not a comedy. The Bear isn't a comedy. All that stuff.
But part of what I liked about this is that even though he explains to his friends and family what he's doing, it's like on the dark web, so no one can find any proof, and they just think he's nuts. And so you, the audience, are almost starting to doubt him as well. You're like, maybe he is nuts. Maybe that's what this movie's about. Maybe he's schizophrenic. Like, who knows? He sees things that no one else sees, and he talks to people that no one else can see. But it's, again, I don't want to give too much away, but if that sounds like that might interest you, it's called Self-Reliance. It's on Netflix. It was decent. I would say it was probably like, I would give it like maybe a C+, B-. Good, but not fantastic.
Okay.
But I was happy I spent 90 minutes on it. All right. Then I had the good fortune of reading a book this week. As we've said before, I listened to it on Audible. I'm just going to say read the book. It's easier to talk about that way.
Yeah.
So the book, the only reason I picked this book up is a trailer for a movie dropped last week, and all the reaction was, oh my God, this movie's going to be fantastic. And then it said, based on a book. So I'm like, well, I'm going to go read the book, which I did. So the book is called Mickey 7. The movie is called Mickey 17, which I'll explain why in a second. So it's directed by Bong Joon-ho, who is the director of Parasite. He won the Academy Award a few years ago.
Yes.
He also directed Snowpiercer, which I know you love to death.
Oh, yes. That movie's so great.
Yeah. The movie stars Robert Pattinson, who most people probably know from the vampire movie, Sparkly Vampires. It's also got Mark Ruffalo, Toni Collette, Steve Yeun. Like, it's got a big cast, and it's got a lot of hype behind it. And the idea here is, again, the movie's called Mickey 17, is that it's a science fiction movie that takes place in the not too distant future. They're terraformers on a spaceship that have gone to a planet to try and start human life there. And Mickey's job on the ship is he is the, quote, expendable crew person. And basically, anytime there's a job that's too dangerous for an important person to do, they send Mickey to do it. And if he gets killed, they have a vat with a clone of Mickey, and they just pop out a new Mickey. So the movie's called Mickey 17 because he's already been killed 16 times before the movie even starts. And so the idea here is that, like, a lot of this is played for comedy. And same in the book. A lot of the stuff they have him doing is just absurdly ridiculous. It's for laughs. But it's anyway, I had a chance to read the book, and it was great. I liked it a lot. And now I'm really looking forward to this movie. It's getting a lot of good buzz based on the trailer that just dropped. And yeah, should be a good one. So if you have a chance to pick up the book is Mickey 7. The movie is Mickey 17. Again, not quite sure why the director opted to go for this, other than the fact that they got to kill him 10 more times on screen, which, again, is probably played up for laughs. So, yeah, strong recommendation. Really looking forward to it. I think the movie starts in April, so we don't have to March or April, so we don't have to wait too long for it. And then last but not least, I had a chance to watch a very good documentary.
40 days and 40 nights, he watches documentaries. He likes to learn about the world. It's Derek's Documentaries. Derek's Documentaries.
Well, our producer jumped right in with that one.
Yeah, no kidding.
Oh,
It's
wow.
almost like he knew this was coming.
Go figure.
Okay, this is a Saturday Night Live documentary. It's called Ladies and Gentlemen, 50 Years of Saturday Night Live Music.
I recorded that. I'm looking forward to watching it.
It debuted on NBC, and then it replayed on Peacock, and then they replayed it on NBC a couple more times. It runs 3 hours with commercials. It's more like 2.5 hours. It's fantastic. It covers basically the history of musical guests on Saturday Night Live, the importance of the musical guests to the longevity of the show, the variety of guests they've had, the number of people that have their careers have blown up in a positive way from being on the show, some of the crazy antics that have happened on the show because of it being live. And again, I mean, you and I are old enough, Chris, that we lived through a lot of this. So many of the things that I watched, I remember. Like, I watched a show and have watched a show every week for, 20 years. I never miss an episode. And so a lot of the stuff I remembered, but some of the really old stuff, because, I mean, I'm 50, and this documentary is talking about 50 years of the show. So obviously I didn't watch it in those early years, but you really just forget how important Saturday Night Live has been to the shaping of music, especially American music, especially in the New York music scene. And this documentary is just, I can't say enough good things about it. A strong A+. My wife and I watched it the other night, and we both when I finished watching on the DVR, I said, like, do you want me to delete it? And she's like, no, I think I might want to watch it again. I'm like, you know what? I also think I'm going to watch it again. It was very, very good. And since you're going to watch it as well,
I've recorded it. I'm looking forward to watching it. Here's the thing I'm a little bit trepidatious about going into it. Is it just showing clips of all the bands playing the songs? Because here's the thing, like, for me, I used to be an actor, and I always loved Saturday Night Live. I loved all the sketches. A lot of times when I was growing up watching it, when the music came on, I was like, ugh, I want to get back to the sketches. You know, like that was always my take. So I'm not saying the music was like the weakest part of the show to me, but it was just not the thing that drew me in the most. So it's not just 3 hours of like clips of bands playing on there. Is there some more behind the scenes stuff? Because that's what
all behind the scenes. It's 2.5 hours of behind the scenes. There's hardly any, like when they show the footage of bands playing, they show them for like 5 seconds. And then they talk about why this was an important act, how this was influential. Oh, this was the first time this ever appeared on national TV, or this performer was on tonight and tomorrow their album went #1. They were literally an overnight success. Or how many times did they book a band? Nobody had heard of them. 6 months later, they're the biggest band in the world. And everyone's like, hey, did you know they played Saturday Night Live 6 months ago? And everyone's like, they existed 6 months ago? So yeah, no, it's fantastic. And they interview cast and crew. They interview the bands themselves. They interview like music reporters. It's so good. And it covers all the different genres. They talk about like pop music, punk music, hip hop, country, the blues. Obviously the Blues Brothers is a big part of one of the segments. And then they even talk about the Lonely Island guys with like the musical videos they did that were basically, when YouTube became a thing, they're like, let's make these pre-recorded shorts and these pre-recorded songs, and how that became a big thing. Yeah, so good on so many levels. If you have a chance to catch this on the rerun, or if it's available on demand, if you got Peacock, or if NBC is going to run it again, watch it. It's fantastic.
No, that's again, if it's more the behind the scenes stuff and all the story, it sounds like I'm going to really, really enjoy it.
I think you're really going to like it. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. You'll be proud of me. My wife and I started watching a new series.
Oh yeah. What was that?
It's on Netflix. It's called Glow. Well, I mean, it's new for me.
It's the lady wrestling one?
Yeah. It stands for the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. So if you're not aware of this was a thing back in the 80s. I remember it. It was on like later at night on TV. It was basically wrestling, but with women. And I never watched it back then. Although I did like wrestling for a while there when I was younger. But I never watched Glow. So Netflix went and made a series about the 80s wrestling show. But it's not like a documentary. It's a scripted series. And it's basically a show about that show. And it starts out with this like out of work actress. She's broke. So she decides to answer a want ad, looking for this, new TV show that they want to cast. And she shows up and they're holding these auditions in a warehouse with a wrestling ring. And Mark Maron is in it. You know the guy that he's
I know he is.
The podcast guy, right? I never knew he was an actor. He's amazing.
He's a stand-up comedian, yeah.
Oh my gosh, he's so good. He totally captures the spirit of this sleazy 80s misogynistic wrestling promoter, but you don't hate him. Like it's such an interesting performance. So we're only like 3 episodes into it, but I got to say it's really, really good. Alison Brie is the actress that plays the lead role. So she was in Mad Men and Community.
Yeah.
And this show, Glow, debuted in 2017 on Netflix. And then what they did was they renewed it for season 2, and they came back into the season 2, and then they renewed it for season 3, and they did that. And then they renewed it for season 4, but because of the pandemic, they didn't do it. They only shot 1 episode, and they didn't finish the season. So that episode, as far as I know, is like in limbo somewhere, and they just never went back to it. So it did like 3 seasons and just ends. So I'm assuming it's just, the ending will be interesting because it wasn't like things wrap up. But it was nominated for a bunch of awards. Alison Brie was nominated for a Golden Globe. And the series won a bunch of awards too. It won Primetime Emmys and Screen Actors Guild Awards. And I think if you like 80s nostalgia, like I do, and you appreciate, like a scripted series that depicts stuff from the 80s, I would really suggest that you give this a try. It's really good. So there you go. There's me recommending something newer, which is totally outside of my wheelhouse. But this is in my wheelhouse. Here we go.
Here's your dad joke of the week.
All right, Derek. A man walks into a zoo. The only animal there is a dog. It's a Shih Tzu.
Jeez, that's both awful and funny at the same time.
The funny thing is that you can say it's a Shih Tzu, but you can't say it's a zoo. See? Hear that? You get beeped out. You get censored. Go figure.
oh my God, he's so hot. No, he's so sexy. And
Raiders of the Lost.
how many times did you watch that before you finally went and looked for the Russell Crowe version?
I'm really impressed.
It's not as good as John Wick, don't get me wrong.
This movie was fantastic.
And I do believe Scorsese might have had his hand in that one.
He might have in more ways than one.
And then you couldn't, and then you could, and then you couldn't.
Beep, 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 beep.
E.T. the extra.
All right, so this year we are going back in time to 1999, and we're going to take a look at the year itself in pop culture. Now, Derek, this was your idea. You wanted to go back and take a look at the year 1999. So maybe you can get things started for us. Like, why that year? What's important about 1999? Why should we, do a deep dive and get into the nostalgia on that year? What do you think?
Yeah. So, in all fairness, I'm a year late on this one because last year was, the 25th anniversary of everything that came out in 99. And in all fairness, full disclosure, a lot of shows, a lot of podcasts, a lot of articles were written about, a 25-year look back on 99. And what I continued to see, which I agreed with, was a lot of people touting the idea that 1999 was arguably the best year in pop culture. Or maybe not ever, but maybe in the last 50 years, for argument's sake. Okay. And obviously, pros and cons. It's a hot topic. It's a hot take. But the more you start to look into it, and especially again, you and I are movie guys first, I think, before all the other types of pop culture. But with movies, you just look at the list of what came out and you're like, holy cow, the number of influential, important movies that have had staying power, whether they're, considered masterpieces of the craft, whether they're become a part of the pop culture and the vernacular based on, repeat viewings, or whether they've important things to film. And so, that's the movie side of it. But then TV also has a lot of those same things. Certain shows are debuting, certain shows that are coming into their own, certain performers that are starting to get recognition. And then music, music can always be a wild card. But again, just the number of incredible bands that put out incredible albums, the number of musicians, older musicians that were getting recognition, a number of newer musicians that were coming on the scene. It was just one of these years where the stars aligned in so many ways, over so many genres, over so many forms of media, that it completely eclipsed anything that had come in the decade before it, arguably, and possibly for the next 25 years to come. And this is something I know that you're going to talk more about. It very much feels like 1999 was sort of like a dividing line for pop culture.
Yeah,
where
I agree.
There were so many things that came before that by 1999 there was a sharp turn, and things that after 99 felt a certain way. And the internet is a large part of that, because that was around when the internet was starting to gain more widespread use. We were starting to get mobile devices. So it was a big change technologically in the world, but it was also a change. We were starting to get more into what they call the information era. And it really opened up doors about how artists could bring their art to the masses, the kinds of messages they would have in them, the kind of revolutionary and very different ideas that they could now bring out. And it's definitely worth a look. So I thought, you know what, rather than do a top 5 list, rather than pick a single movie from 1999 to do a review on, I wanted to just have a discussion. Just like we do at the end of every year we've been doing the show, we do like a year in review, a look back, sort of that idea. But I think there's a lot more to talk about, so we may not follow that exact formula. But yeah, that was sort of why I wanted to touch on this year. And we may find that through the course of our discussion and through the feedback we get from our listeners, there are other years that you might want to hold up in comparison for various reasons. But for tonight, we're going to focus on 99. This is going to be the first one we do. Is it the only one we do? Who knows? Let's find out.
Yeah. With everything that happened in 1999, and I was there, I remember it very well. I agree. It's like a dividing line between old pop culture and new pop culture. And which is really perfect for this podcast, because we look at the Gen X pop culture and millennial pop culture, and that's kind of the dividing line. Derek, this is how my brain works. Okay. For me, the 70s had a feel. The 80s had a feel. The 90s had a feel. Everything from 2000 on, it's just all blurred together. that's just the way my brain works. So for me, 1999 is that dividing line between, these distinguishable decades of pop culture and then just everything that came after. That's how my mind works. So
I've heard that from other people that are around our age, and I honestly think it's partly due to our age. We got to a certain point in our life where being on top of the new thing was no longer as big a priority for us. But my biased opinion.
Yeah, but I get that.
I do agree to a certain extent.
I get that, but I think if you go back in time, let's say in the 80s, when the 80s were going, I don't think that we would look at our parents at that time, and our parents would say like, oh, the 50s had a feel and the 60s had a feel, but the 70s and 80s just don't. They did. I just think everything got kind of blurred after the millennium, but that's just me. Okay, so let's start with music. You want to start, and we'll talk about music 1999. Do you know what the number one song of the year was in 1999?
Oh, I was looking some of this up, and different lists had different answers. So,
right, I guess.
Tell me which one you want to talk about first.
So the number one song of the year was actually "Believe" by Cher. And it was 33 years between her first and her last number one hits. Because in 1965, she had "I Got You, Babe." And, so I'm looking at all this and like, that was the number one song of the year. That might have been the number one song. But when I think of 1999, there's one song for me that was everywhere. And that was Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca.
I was just going to say, gotta be Livin' La Vida Loca. Yeah.
It was like the biggest selling album of the year was actually Shania Twain, Come On Over, which was released 2 years prior to that.
Huge album.
But it was massive. But yeah, it was like, Cher was the number one song with Believe, but Livin' La Vida Loca, that was just like, it was everywhere in 99. Like you could not escape that song. But the thing was,
it's a good song.
Well, it was very catchy, right?
Yeah.
Excuse me. But the Grammys are always a little bit different. I find, because I looked at the Grammys and the record of the year and the song of the year both went to Smooth.
Yeah, Santana.
By Rob Thomas and Santana. And the album of the year was Supernatural by Santana.
Also by Santana, yeah.
Santana was a big deal in 1999, at least with the critics or whatever. I remember.
I was going to say, this was one of those things that I alluded to in my sort of pitch at the beginning, where Santana had this body of work, and this was an opportunity for sort of the institution to recognize, much like they do like a makeup Oscar, where they're like, well, we're going to give it to Al Pacino for Scent of a Woman. He did 12 better movies, but we don't know how many more he's got in him. Let's just give him it to this one. Now, but I want to be careful though. I do agree that Smooth is a fantastic song. I think the album is Supernatural was a fantastic album. I'm not saying that it wasn't deserving of these accolades, but I think that the industry, the people behind the scenes were happy that they could award the Grammy to someone like Santana, who had worked so hard for so long and maybe not received the level of recognition that he certainly deserved. Now, looking back, like we often do with the Oscars, you're like, how did they pick that? So like I'm looking the other nominees for Record of the Year. Mm-hmm. We had, album of the year. For Best Rock Album was Santana, Melissa Etheridge, Limp Bizkit, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Mm-hmm. Again, all big albums at the time. Was Californication by Red Hot Chili Peppers better than Supernatural Santana? I mean, I think so because I'm a Red Hot Chili Peppers fan, but I don't have an objection to that. So again, it's arguable. So
yeah, I mean, I guess for me, like we have the opportunity to look back on this, yes, right? With the different lens. Like I just don't see Santana as standing out as 1999 to me. Like Santana was like older. I think you're right. Like he just did older stuff and then just was kind of rewarded for it this year. I think of him, I always think of. There's Cheech and Chong. I want to say it was Nice Dreams, one of their movies. And there's all these girls, and they come and they see Chong, and they're like, they see him, and they think he's the drummer for the Grateful Dead. And all these girls are like fawning all over him. And Cheech is like, hey man, I'm Santana, man. That's what I always remember with Santana. And he did Black Magic Woman, and other than that, like, I don't know, he was just decent guitar player, I guess. But I mean, I don't know. It just seemed like a lot.
I think part of the reason that the Supernatural album got such high praise is because he collaborated with, like, obviously Santana's not the singer.
No, he never sang.
But he brought on a lot of really notable performers, like Smooth, the song is sung by Rob Thomas, who's a lead singer of Matchbox 20, which at the time, Matchbox 20, huge band. But also performing on that album, you've got Dave Matthews, you've got Lauryn Hill, you've got Everlast, you've got Eric Clapton. Like, he has all these other artists that have come on and do the vocals, and it's like, again, that doesn't happen by accident. That's because you're bringing on like talented people. So,
and they obviously want to work with him because they recognize, you know, him as being someone special. So I went back and I took a little look at a timeline from 1999 in music. So in February 23rd, Eminem released his second studio album, the Slim Shady LP. That was big at the time. Huge. Oh my gosh, it was everywhere. And then on June the 1st, two things happened. Number one, Blink-182 released Enema of the State.
Oh, fantastic album.
Oh, it's great. And then also on June 1st, Napster was launched. Do you remember Napster? I'm sure you do.
I remember it. I never got around to using it. I wasn't really a big computer guy in the late 1990s.
I did. So again, the internet was really coming into its own, just like you mentioned. And so Napster comes along and they basically allowed people just to share songs. So people would post songs on there and you can go and like download a song. And I remember I could find like the most obscure things. I remember looking for stuff like Night Ranger songs from the 80s and stuff like that. It was all on there. It was so cool. But it didn't last long. Got shut down pretty quick. And then I want to say it was Metallica really came out against it. And they were like, you know, this is copyright infringement and stuff. So, you know. So then moving on with the timeline, June the 12th, Britney Spears released her album Baby One More Time.
Huge album.
By June the 30th.
Britney on the map. Yep.
By June the 30th, so like 2 weeks later, the single and the album were both number one. Yep. It was massive. And Christina Aguilera also released Genie in a Bottle right around that time. Yep. And then the big event was in July, from the 22nd of July to the 25th of July, which was Woodstock 99. Yeah. Huge. There was a Netflix documentary. It was like a 3-part documentary, like last year or something that came out. I remember watching it. And like, it was something else, like Korn and Kid Rock and Red Hot Chili Peppers and Blink-182 and Jamiroquai and all the. But the thing was, whereas Woodstock from 69 was all about peace, love, dope. Yep. Woodstock 99 was like about like bring the pain. It felt like, you know, like it was poorly organized. Obviously, I mean, the 69 was, you know, had its stories too. But it seemed like a lot of the bands were like this aggressive music that was meant to just fire people up.
But the music scene was a lot like that, right? You were coming out of grunge. You were getting a lot more. You were getting back into like guitar music and like more rock music, like what rock music was becoming. You start to get into like bands like Limp Bizkit and where it's more like thrash metal. Like, not that I would necessarily call Limp Bizkit that, but you know what I mean? Like you're leaning into that. You're starting to get into that heavier and heavier kind of music. And so, yeah, to your point, as you're booking these bands and they're all playing one after the other, you've got very different audiences that want to hear those types of music. So of course, you know, fans of music type A and fans of music type B probably are not the same kind of people, and of course there's going to be conflict.
Did you know anybody that went?
I keep trying to think if Greg Martin went. I don't remember.
Oh, we'll have to. When we get him on next time, we'll have to ask him. I had a friend of mine who went down and went to it and you know, had brought back all these pictures and stuff, and it was basically like a little scary to be there, to be honest. I think was his take on it. So some other songs, I went through a list, other songs that stick out from 99. Every Morning by Sugar Ray. Like, when I hear that song now, it just takes me back to that time, because that was a big song. The other Britney Spears song she had was You Drive Me Crazy. The thing was huge. Larger Than Life by the Backstreet Boys. Remember the Bad Touch by Bloodhound Gang? Oh, yeah. Huge.
And then a funny video, too.
And then Blink-182 had two big ones, All the Small Things and What's My Age Again. Were both, like, they were massive. And they really did usher in sort of a new feel of music. You know, you alluded to it. The thing was, I remember I used to do a lot of DJing around that time. And they called it alternative music. Like that was just a term for it. And so when I was DJing, we had this subscription service where every month you'd get a CD with a bunch of different new songs on it, and they always had the title and the artist and the genre. And it would be like, such and such a song, dance or whatever, country or whatever. And I remember that year, like 90% of them were like alternative. It was like everything was considered alternative. Like when I think of alternative, it was like, I think of like Alanis Morissette and like No Doubt and Beck, Weezer, Blur, stuff like that. But like alternative music was like this huge thing. And I'm certainly it came out just before 99, but in 1999 itself, it was like the year of alternative music, right?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, when they say alternative, it's supposed to be alternative to the mainstream. So if you assume your mainstream is like traditional pop music, then of course, so much of what was coming out would be different than that, and therefore an alternative to that. I think the idea also was alternative music was a little edgier in the sense that it may not always be as radio friendly, whereas pop music was always, this is top 40 pop music that you can turn on to any radio station anywhere in North America and you're likely to hear some of these songs. Whereas alternative would not have played the same way in all, in all cities, all states, all provinces. You're going to get a lot of areas of the country, both the US and Canada, where people would be like, I'm not interested in this. This is not my kind of music. I don't like how it sounds. I don't like what they're saying. I don't like the message. I don't like how the band looks. And so for me, when I think alternative, that's sort of where I'm going. It's like all of these things that are not straight up, tight-laced pop music, good for all audiences.
Right, where like Cher and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera were all over the top of the charts, and Backstreet Boys, the radio stations weren't playing Weezer.
They all fall into that pop category without question. Britney Spears, that's pop music, and it has its place, and it had tons of fans, and the songs were huge hits. Where I found alternative started to get a little bit too wide was when it started to encompass more of like what would be what we would now sort of think of as more rock and roll, like guitar rock, like a band like the Foo Fighters or even Red Hot Chili Peppers, which tend to straddle that line between alternative and rock. But it's like if you're a band and you've got that traditional guitar and the drums and all that stuff, like you're probably going to be, in my mind, you're more rock and roll. Like I would always consider Foo Fighters a rock and roll, but they were constantly put into that alternative category because people that liked alternative also tend to like this kind of music. So it was a much wider net. And so if you were listening to radio channels that played alternative, chances are you were getting exposed to a wider variety of music, which is, I think, part of the reason that it was so appealing to so many people.
I want to talk a little bit about TV shows from that year too. So some shows that debuted in 1999 that were huge. These are two huge TV shows that debuted in 99, but I gotta admit, I never watched them. One was The Sopranos, and the other was The West Wing. So I actually just recently tried to go back and watch The Sopranos. My wife and I put it on, and I don't know what the thing is. I watched the first episode, and it didn't really hook me. I was like, I don't think so. So we haven't watched another episode since. You ever watch The Sopranos? You ever get into it?
Yeah, I think I watched the first season, but I was a couple of seasons behind. I remember watching them on DVD. A friend of mine had them. And yeah, like you, it didn't wow me. It did and it didn't. Like I could understand why it was a critical success, but I just found for me the pacing wasn't what I was expecting it to be. But the performances were great. But yeah, it's one of those ones that I sort of always thought, I should probably go back and watch it. I probably enjoy it, but it never did. Whereas West Wing, I watched every episode as it came out, and then I bought all the DVDs of all the seasons as they were available, and I've probably gone back and rewatched this show, like the full run of the West Wing, probably like 3 or 4 times. It's great. And in the world we live in today, it's a lot of I don't want to say wish fulfillment, but there's definitely a level of that. It's sort of that looking back on a time when there was like an aspirational element to it, where the writers and the producers, the directors were like, this is what we could get. This is a positive look at how things could be in the moment. And now you look back at it and it's so ridiculous by today's standards, because you would just never expect people to do the things they do in this show just because it's the right thing to do. You know,
No kidding.
And you know, it's the world has changed so much in 25 years that West Wing is a real time capsule. And it's, you know, unfortunate. You sort of look back at it and you're like, man, I wish the world was more like that. And, you know, I know that in today's day and age, looking back and saying, I wish we had the times like we used to have. A lot of people say that for a lot of the wrong reasons, but
True.
The West Wing is it's good drama, it's good performance, it's got very positive messaging. Like I think it's one of those ones that you look back on. I did just want to mention a couple other things here about TV. So we had 2 other big shows that debuted. I'm not going to talk about either of them because I think I'm going to step on your toes a little bit. But the first one is Law and Order Special Victims Unit.
Yeah, that was a huge show then too. Yeah.
That show's still going.
Yep.
26 years later, they're still pumping out new episodes. Again, I watched all the Law and Orders when they were new. I probably stopped watching SVU maybe 5 or 6 seasons in, just because I stopped watching a lot of TV. But that show is still running and people love it. Freaks and Geeks is another one that debuted. It only ran 1 season. I know you want to talk about that, but we'll circle back to that in a sec. So then I just want to mention 3 shows that were already established but sort of coming into their own that were important in 99. So in 1999, HBO was still not really putting out a lot of what we would now call prestige TV. Now, The Sopranos obviously started in 99, and that's sort of the beginning of prestige TV as we know it. But just before that, a couple seasons earlier, they did a show called Oz, which was about a prison. And it was like hardcore, no censorship, like crazy stuff happening in a men's maximum security prison.
Right. It was like on HBO or something.
It was also on HBO. Yeah. And it was written and produced by a lot of the same people that worked on Law and Order. So you had a lot of the actors from Law and Order also appeared in Oz. And there was a lot of performers from Oz that went on to have fantastic careers. And it was starting its 3rd season, which was really when it started hitting its stride. So that was 99. Will and Grace debuted in 98. But it started its 2nd season in 99. Again, this is a groundbreaking TV show. Yeah. It's the first time you have the depiction of the LGBTQ community on screen in mainstream TV, primetime U.S. across the country. And it cleaned up at the awards. Like it got all sorts of recognition, which it surely deserved. And as we find with a lot of shows, season 1 is not necessarily always great because nobody really knows what it is yet. By season 2, good shows become great shows, and this was season 2 for this one. And then I also just want to mention real quick, ER. It was going into its 6th season, and that show ran forever. But that was the last year that we had George Clooney, and so it was sort of, again, a turning point for this show. Like, hey, George Clooney's becoming a big star. Can this show live without him? And it did. It ran like another 10 seasons after he left. But again, these are 3 shows that if you were watching TV in 99, you were probably watching at least 1 or 2 of these. And then you had these other 4 shows debut that we just talked about. And then there's a bunch of stuff about animated TV, which I'll talk about in a minute, but I want to turn it back to you for a minute.
I just want to go back to Freaks and Geeks for a bit because that is a personal favorite of mine. And not only that, it's one of the most seminal shows in history. Like you got Judd Apatow and then all the freaks, Linda Cardellini, Jason Segel, Seth Rogen, James Franco, even Busy Phillips had a solid career. But if you look at it, the geeks, they didn't fare so well afterward. John Francis Daly and Sam Levine and Martin Starr, they didn't really go on anything. But I really like the parents too. Maybe the best parents ever. Got Joe Flaherty and Becky Ann Baker. Now, she went on to play Lena Dunham's mom in Girls, and she was also Ted Lasso's mom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I forgot about that.
1999, I also want to mention. So that was the year that I love game shows. And you do too, Derek. I know.
I love game shows.
1999 was the year they brought back Family Feud. So Ray Combs replaced Richard Dawson back in 88. And then Richard Dawson, they brought him back in 1994 for 2 seasons. And then the show got canceled. And they brought it back in 1999 with the new set. You know, the crappy one that they still use now. Totally different set. Most people know Steve Harvey as the host of Family Feud now, which I think he sucks, by the way. That's my opinion. Hot take. But there was 3 hosts between 1999 when they brought it back and then 2010 when Harvey took over. So right before Harvey was John O'Hurley. He hosted from 2006 to 2010.
That was the guy from Seinfeld, right?
Yes.
Mr. Peterman?
Yes, yeah. Peterman. And before him, it was Richard Karn, hosted from 2002 to 2006. But when they first brought it back, Home Improvement. When they first brought it back in 1999, the host was Louis Anderson.
Yes, it was.
Worst game show host.
Oh,
in
he was
history.
a terrible host.
Oh, man, he was awful. But speaking of game shows, that's not the one I really want to talk about. When 1999 was like the year the game show made its sort of resurgence. You know, it came back bigger than ever with Who Wants to Be a Millionaire?
Yeah.
You cannot overstate how huge this show was when it came back in 1999. Like, people across the country, it became a catchphrase. Is that your final answer? Like, that was like a thing everyone said. So I was looking at the TV ratings for 1999. So the number one show was Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Tuesday night. Number two show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Thursday night. Mm-hmm. The number three show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? On Sunday night, because they put it on 3 nights a week. It was so huge. It was the number 1, 2, and 3 spot. Number 4 was ER, and number 5 was Friends. Frasier was number 6. Monday Night Football was number 7. 60 Minutes was number 8. Those two always make it up there.
Yeah, I was going to say football in 60 minutes for sure.
Number 9 was The Practice, and number 10, rounding out the top 10, was Touched by an Angel. Go figure. Kind of disappeared. But one thing that I wanted to mention too was a show that I watched a lot back in 99 was the Drew Carey version of Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, right. Yeah, you mentioned this before. Yeah.
He developed that for American TV after Clive Owen did it. Like, he hosted for years in England. But it debuted in 1998, but it really took off in 1999. So then I decided to go and take a look at the Emmy Awards from that year. Because they're always, to me, the Emmys are kind of like the Grammys. Like, I don't know if they really capture the most popular stuff. But Outstanding Comedy Series was Ally McBeal. Kind of forgot about that. That was a big show, too, at the time. And the Outstanding
Well,
Drama...
hang on. These are the ones... So these were shows from 98 that won in 99.
Yeah, well, remember, the Emmys are held in September. So it was held in September of 99. So it was kind of like 98, 99-ish, sort of.
Yeah, okay.
You know? And then...
I was looking at, when I did my homework, I looked at, just like the Oscars, I looked at the results from the following year.
So what was the following year Outstanding Comedy Series?
Will and Grace.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. What I've got for Outstanding Drama Series was The Practice.
And I've got season 1 of The West Wing.
West Wing was the next year. Okay, so the...
West Wing was the next few years. But
yeah, no kidding. The Outstanding Lead Actor in a Comedy Series in the year, again, of September of 99 was John Lithgow in Third Rock from the Sun.
Third Rock from the Sun, yeah.
So a year later, who took it?
Was Michael J. Fox in Spin City.
Spin City, and Mike Flaherty. Oh, that's a good one. Outstanding Lead Actor in a Drama Series was Dennis Franz in NYPD Blue.
Oh, from NYPD Blue, yeah. The next year was James Gandolfini, Sopranos, season 1.
Sopranos, yeah, okay, that makes sense. He was nominated the year before, too, but didn't win.
Oh, okay, then I guess this was season 2.
Yep. Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series was Helen Hunt in Mad About You.
Oh, okay. Well, the next year was Patricia Heaton from Everyone Loves Raymond.
Yeah, she was nominated in 1999 as well. And Outstanding Lead Actress in a Drama Series was Edie Falco from The Sopranos.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Edie was nominated this next year around, but it went to Celia Ward for Once in a Game.
Oh, very interesting. Some other nominees in the drama series lead actress, Gillian Anderson from The X-Files. That show was pretty big too. And Juliana Margulies was in ER. She was pretty big too. So The Sopranos had 10 nominations. So they really led the way. The Practice had 7 and Ally McBeal had 6. So all big shows. Also want to mention Family Guy debuted on Fox.
You're stepping on my animation, buddy.
Oh, sorry. So to take it away, because it came out right after the Super Bowl in January that year.
So animated, primetime animated shows. I mean, Simpsons is the granddaddy of them all, which came out in 89. And then, the networks were trying to recreate that magic. So 10 years after The Simpsons is well established, time to bring something a little newer and a little fresher. And man, oh man, we got 5 amazing cartoons. So Family Guy, as you mentioned, debuts in 1999. Does not necessarily do that well as the history of the show for people who know it. Yeah. It ran a few seasons, it got canceled, and the fans demanded the show come back, and the show's now came back the following year, and it's still in the air, so it's running strong.
Yeah, because like DVD sales were so high and syndication was so high, they actually brought the show back after they canceled it after season 3.
We got Futurama, Also by the Matt Groening from The Simpsons. So this is the science fiction one. It started in 1999, similar to Family Guy. Ran, I think, 4 seasons, got canceled. Then they did a bunch of like specials where it was like 4 30-minute episodes for like one sort of movie. And they did a bunch of those. And then it eventually got picked up, I want to say by like Amazon or YouTube or one of the streaming services. And they did a whole bunch more seasons of it. So again, it is a fan favorite that they have continued to pump out new material for. So again, a lot of longevity there. A show that I didn't watch, but SpongeBob SquarePants debuted in '99.
Yes,
I never really got into it, but it is a huge favorite from a lot of people that are younger than I am, and it ran forever and a day. One that was right up my alley. So in the early '90s, we had Batman the Animated Series. And then they did a spin-off of that one called Batman Beyond. And so Batman Beyond started in 1999. That's sort of the idea is Batman, Bruce Wayne is an old man. He's no longer Batman. And a younger kid picks up the Batman mantle. And you get sort of it's like, think of it like Batman, the Next Generation. And it ran 3 or 4 seasons. And again, fan favorite. They still do comic books about Batman Beyond. Those characters introduced in this cartoon are still part of the ongoing DC universe. And then the last one.
Which is the one that Mark Hamill does the Joker voice in?
That's the precursor to this Batman.
Okay, before that one. Okay.
Yeah. And then the last one I want to mention is it's an anime show actually called One Piece. Debuted in 1999. It's still going strongly today. It's one of the highest rated shows. It's got a huge fan following. Again, not really my jam, but I feel any discussion about animated shows that debuted in 99 that doesn't at least acknowledge this is not doing its job. So yeah, 5 huge cartoon shows that debuted in 99. We have Futurama, Family Guy, SpongeBob, Batman Beyond, and One Piece. Like, you're going to be hard pressed to find another year that has those kind of just clear winners in their pack here.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's move on to movies, if we could. I always ask this question of you. What do you know what the number 1 movie at the box office was in 1999, Derek?
Box office?
Yeah.
It's got to be Star Wars.
Yeah, it was Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
$430 million.
That's it? No.
Yeah, almost double the second one. So in second place was The Sixth Sense. Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, was in third place with $200 million. Toy Story 2 was in number 4, and The Matrix was number 5.
So good.
And then from there, number 6 was Tarzan. Number 7 was Big Daddy. The Mummy was number 8. Runaway Bride, number 9. And rounding out the top 10, here's one for you that was huge in 1999. The Blair Witch Project.
Yep.
So that was a huge movie. So I want to also talk a little bit about the Oscars, because we talked before about the Emmys and stuff like that. So the Oscars for 1999, the best picture was American Beauty.
It was
one of the most controversial wins of all time.
I don't know if it was controversial in the moment, but I think certainly
at the moment, probably not. But looking back, it certainly has
the
been.
Kevin Spacey of it all, yeah.
Because I mean, like, it was also nominated against The Cider House Rules, The Green Mile, The Insider, and The Sixth Sense. What do you think should have won?
I think looking back, I would have to go with The Sixth Sense.
Yeah, me too. The Sixth Sense was the best picture that year. I agree. And Best Director, Sam Mendes won for American Beauty, but M. Night Shyamalan for The Sixth Sense. I mean, come on.
Or you could argue Spike Jonze for being John Malkovich just because of the bizarreness of it all. But no, I think Shyamalan. That was the best. Like, that's the number 1 line of his obituary. M. Night Shyamalan brackets The Sixth Sense. Like, there's no question.
For me, The Sixth Sense was huge because it came out. It was this big sensation, and I didn't see it in the movie theater. And then they re-released it in the movie theater, and I was like, I got to go back and see this thing. Like, what's this all about? Yeah. And I go and watch the damn thing. And first of all, 2 things struck me at the end of the film. Number 1, nobody let the cat out of the bag. Like, that was the one thing that got me.
It was pre-internet, right? Like, people.
Yeah, I guess, because I mean, the internet was still kind of in its infancy, but it was there. But like, I was like, nobody spoiled it. That's so cool that people had so much almost respect for the film. They did not, spoil it. And the other thing that got me the most, and this is why I think, Shyamalan should win Best Director that year, was as soon as the movie was over, I was like, that friggin' director got me.
Yeah.
Gosh, he got me. Oh my gosh. So Best Actor that year went to Kevin Spacey for American Beauty. He was up against Russell Crowe for The Insider, Richard Farnsworth for The Straight Story, Sean Penn, Sweet and Lowdown, and Denzel Washington for The Hurricane. Denzel Washington for the Hurricane should have won that year, I think. Best actress.
Russell Crowe was pretty good at The Insider.
Yeah. I just don't like Russell Crowe, I guess. I've got this thing against him. Best actress was Hilary Swank for Boys Don't Cry. She was up against Annette Bening for American Beauty, who I actually think should have won. I thought she was great in that film. Janet McTeer in Tumbleweeds, Julianne Moore, The End of the Affair, and Meryl Streep for Music of the Heart. So it was a little bit of a weak category, I guess. Best Supporting Actor went to Michael Caine for The Cider House Rules. And I remember it was a bit of a surprise.
This was clearly the wrong choice.
It was a bit of a surprise because I remember at the time, it was like one of two people you thought was going to win. You thought it was going to be either Michael Clark Duncan for The Green Mile or Haley Joel Osment for The Sixth Sense. Like everyone was talking about those two. And there comes Michael Caine, winning that thing. And then Best Supporting Actress was Angelina Jolie for Girl Interrupted. Mm-hmm. I thought Toni Collette in The Sixth Sense was outstanding. She was outstanding. Catherine Keener was also nominated for being John Malkovich. Samantha Morton, Sweet and Lowdown, and Chloe Sevigny for Boys Don't Cry. But I don't know. And then screenplay for the screen was American Beauty, and then screenplay, adapted screenplay was The Cider House Rules. So, pretty big year for movies, especially critically. American Beauty led him with 8 nominations. Cider House Rules and Insider had 7 nominations, and The Sixth Sense had 6 nominations. And American Beauty took home 5. So it led the list. But The Matrix took home 4 awards, all for visual effects and stuff like that.
What they call below the line. Yeah. All the special effects stuff. Yeah.
But also that year was big for the return of Star Wars, because course. I remember it was such a big deal that oh my gosh, this huge franchise that was such a big part of all of our youth and stuff was going to come back. It was everywhere. It was such a big deal. And then the Blair Witch Project, as we mentioned, they made that on a budget of $200,000.
Yeah.
It took in $260 million, like crazy. And then 2 little shout outs I want to give for personal faves of mine. I like this movie called Lake Placid. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, with Betty White.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what it is about that movie. I just thought it was great.
It was a big red thread blockbuster. People loved it.
I loved it. I thought it was a great little movie. And I also really liked South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. God, that movie was good. Who
doesn't?
Oh, yeah. God, that was good. Any other movies that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned a few of them. The Matrix, in my mind, is hugely important movie for so many reasons, both for its technical achievement, the message behind the Matrix. This was, the message in the Matrix is even more relevant today. The idea of, man versus machine, the idea of artificial intelligence and what's real and what's not, and being an active rebellion against authority versus being just being passive about there's so much going on in the Matrix that is even more relevant today when you look back at it. But it's a great movie start to finish. I've probably seen the Matrix, if I say 50 times, that's probably going to be pretty close, but might even be a low number. This is one of my all-time favorites. It's fantastic. But also other movies of note. So we already talked about a little bit about movies like The Sixth Sense and Star Wars. The Thomas Crown Affair. They did a remake of it, starring Pierce Brosnan and Rene Russo, which again was great. This is Pierce Brosnan after he's been James Bond a couple of times, so he was really coming into his own. A little movie.
I think that year he did Dante's Peak as well,
which was not as good.
Not as good, no.
Yeah.
But yeah.
There's a little movie called The Mystery Men. It's about a group of B-level superheroes that are.
Paul Rubens was in that one.
Yeah, Ben Stiller and William H. Macy, Hank Azaria, Janeane Garofalo. It's got a cast of people you recognize. Jeffrey Rush is the bad guy, is Casanova Frankenstein. It's one of those guilty pleasure movies where you watch it, you're like, this movie is awful, but it's so funny. It's got so many good lines. The main hero, Captain Amazing, is played by Greg Kinnear, and they accidentally kill him, and they're like, oh my God, we killed Captain Amazing. And then someone's like, what do you mean we? I was standing over here. It just has so many good lines. We had Magnolia, which was a big movie from Paul Thomas Anderson. It's like a huge ensemble cast, a lot of critical praise. Personally, I think it's a little bit too long, but was very beloved by a lot of people. Green Mile, you already mentioned, was one of the movies nominated for Oscars, based on the Stephen King novellas. Again, great movie. We'll probably have to watch that one sometime soon. It was actually on TV this weekend. I caught a little piece of it, and I thought, no, I want to watch it from the beginning. But it's a great movie. We got Eyes Wide Shut, the last movie by Stanley Kubrick.
Yes, because he died that year, didn't he?
Yeah, it was something that everyone felt they had to watch because it was his last movie. But I think a lot of people were like, what the hell was this? But you get a lot of different opinions on it. Being John Malkovich, I mentioned before, again, just this bizarre, crazy idea. It's a movie unlike anything you've seen, and you watch it and you go, what did I just spend 90 minutes doing? But you're like, I think I might need to watch that one again. It was kind of crazy and good at the same time. We had Bowfinger, which was sort of like the return of Eddie Murphy. So you have Frank Oz directs it. It stars Steve Martin and Eddie Murphy. It was a great comedy. I think it's underrated. I think you go back and watch it now and you realize just how good it was. I think Steve Martin actually wrote it, if I remember correctly. And then, again, one of the more important movies of 1999 is Fight Club. It's one of these ones that people sometimes you hear about people praising it for a lot of the wrong reasons because they don't really get the message. But it's based on a book by Chuck Palahniuk, and the book was fantastic. I went out and read it right after I saw the movie, and the movie's great. It's one of these ones that I think really holds up. And just so many good movies this year. It was crazy. You look back and not just movies that did well critically or movies that did well in the box office, but movies when you go back, you're like, how many of these movies would you consider rewatchable? Like, so many of them.
Man in the Moon came out that year, I think.
Yeah.
It was
Jim
really
Carrey
good.
playing Andy Kaufman.
What about Galaxy Quest? Didn't that come out that year? You love that movie.
Yeah. The satire on Star Trek, but again, also on TV just a couple of weeks ago, I managed to catch part of it. Kevin Smith put out his movie Dogma, which again, his critical he was quite critical of the Catholic religion, but again, he was raised Catholic, so he felt he had a message to say. A big cast in that one too. It's actually just going to be coming back on media and on streaming later this year. It has not been available for a long time. You also have a movie like Cruel Intentions, which is like a retelling of Dangerous Liaisons with all young, beautiful people. And a friend of mine who had never watched this watched it just in the last few weeks and said, like, wow, that movie really good, really holds up. So, yeah, just so many great movies.
And there was a lot of pop culture events that year, too. So one I want to mention is Pokemon. Although it technically started in 96, 1999, Pokemon exploded. It just dominated the pop culture scene. Like, there was the trading cards and the TV show and stuff. It was huge. I mentioned Your Final Answer, which was everywhere that year. Some notable celebrity deaths from that year. I mentioned Stanley Kubrick already, but Gene Siskel, Dana Plato, DeForest Kelley, George C. Scott. And then, of course, you touched base on it, but it's Y2K. Like, it was just on everybody's mind. Not really pop culture-ish, but it sort of framed everything. And I think that's why movies like The Matrix were so successful, because a lot of those really sort of really, really good social commentary films are rooted in truth, and at the time there was a lot of fear of machines, and are machines going to, take over the world? And you know what? So Y2K was like a pervasive thing for the whole year that kind of just fed into the whole pop culture, zeitgeist at the time. So it's just kind of a way to just kind of frame everything when you look back at that year as we lived through it. So yeah, 1999 was one heck of a year.
It was a big year for a lot of reasons. Yeah.
I'm glad that we were able to kind of take a look back and do that. But on that note, I think now we should actually kind of lighten the mood. And what do you say we have some
fun with Caveman?
All right, my man. So as I mentioned, one of the biggest pop culture phenomenon from 1999 was Pokemon.
Oh my God. I know.
So I thought we would play a little game called
Pokemon or Drug.
Now, we played this game before when Yancey was on the show. And to be fair, Yancey wasn't available to join us this time, but we still wanted to play the game.
So, we did? Because I don't know anything about Pokemon, so I think I'm going to get embarrassed in this trivia.
Yes, Derek, you're in the hot seat.
Going to be a guest.
But here's how it works. I'm going to give you a name, and you have to tell me if it's either a prescription medication or if it's a Pokemon. It's 50-50. So you're in the hot seat, but I mean 50-50. Come on.
I'm going to keep track of how many I get right here. I
right?
don't like my chances.
All right, I'm going to start you with some easy ones, okay? Lipitor. Lipitor. Is it a Pokemon or drug?
It sounds like a drug.
It is. It's used to lower bad cholesterol levels in the blood. Okay. Cyndaquil. Is Cyndaquil Pokemon or drug?
That sounds Pokemon-ish. I'm going to go Pokemon.
It is. Cyndaquil is a second generation fire Pokemon. Very good. All right. Gabapentin. Gabapentin is that.
That sounds familiar. I got to think that's a drug.
That's commonly used to treat and prevent seizures in people with epilepsy. So
okay.
There you go. All right. Nidoran. Nidoran, is that Pokemon or drug? Nidoran.
No idea. I'm going to say Pokemon.
Yes, it's a first generation poison Pokemon.
Sure.
Okay. Vulpix. Is Vulpix a Pokemon or drug?
It sounds druggy, but I'm going to go with Pokemon.
Yes, it is a Generation 1 fire Pokemon. Well, see, you're doing so good.
I'm 5-0.
I know. Vigoroth. Is Vigoroth a Pokemon or drug?
That's got to be Pokemon.
It is. It's a third generation ground Pokemon. All right. Flagel. Is Flagel a Pokemon or drug?
Well, if it was a drug and I had to take Flagel every day, I probably wouldn't be feeling too good. So I'm going to hope that that's a Pokemon.
No, it's commonly used to treat infections caused by bacteria or parasites.
Oh, well. Okay.
All right. Vibrava. Is Vibrava a Pokemon or drug?
Oh, that sounds very druggish. I'm going to go with drug.
Third generation ground Pokemon right there.
Yeah.
Vibrava. All right. Plavix. Is Plavix a Pokemon or drug?
Oh, no. That's definitely a drug.
Yes, and it's actually used to prevent complications following a stroke or heart attack. Okay. Valtrex. Is that a Pokemon or drug?
That could go either way. Valtrex. Is Valtrex the Mighty? Or is it like, I'm taking my Valtrex so I don't fall down? I'm going to go with the drug.
Yes. It's an antiviral medicine, commonly used to combat herpes.
Oh, jeez.
So there you go.
I'm glad I didn't answer too quickly.
I know. Exactly. Crestor. Is Crestor a Pokemon or drug?
Oh, it's got to be a Pokemon.
No, it's used to lower your cholesterol, unfortunately.
Oh, jeez.
Dialga. Is Dialga a Pokemon or drug? Dialga.
I don't know. It's a drug.
Fourth generation steel Pokemon. All right.
All these Pokemon fans are yelling into their thing. You're like, how do you not know this stuff? You're a nerd. I'm like, that's not what I'm nerdy in.
Togetic. Is Togetic a Pokemon or drug?
It's got to be a Pokemon.
There you go. Second generation bug Pokemon. And we're going to finish off with a real easy one for you, okay? Remoraid. Is Remoraid a Pokemon or drug? Remoraid.
How is that an easy one?
Just listen to the sound of it. Remoraid.
It sounds like a drug. I got to go drug.
This is Generation 2 water Pokemon right there, dude.
Well, I got 9 right and 5 wrong, so I'm still in the play.
Yeah, 50-50. You did pretty good. You should have did, half of them wrong, so you did it right. Jeez. Okay, so next time we come back, what do you say? Next week, you're away. We have some vacation
take
time
a little vacation time. I think I've earned it. It's been a month since Christmas.
Absolutely. So, but next time we come back, what do you say that we review a movie from 1999?
I love it. What are we watching?
I got one for you. Okay. This one pains me a little bit, but I really want to go back and look at this one. And you probably know where I'm going to go here. I want to go back. I want to watch and review Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace.
Okay.
How I've expressed my feelings about this film in the past before, and it's been a long time since I saw it. But I think it's worth me going back and taking another look at it now, after all these years have passed, and actually reviewing this film, because it was like the #1 film at the box office. It was huge. And I think I owe it to myself to go back and like at least give it another chance and see what I think of it. So
okay.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen this a handful of times, but it is certainly one of my least favorite Star Wars films. So it's not something that I'm racing to go and go and see. But yeah, no, I'll give it a go. Sure.
Give us an opportunity to review it. That's for sure. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to come back next time and we're going to review Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. And until then, I'm Chris McBrien. On behalf of myself and Derek Myers and our producer Sloth, I'd like to say thanks very much for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World. You can contact Chris and Derek at popgoesyourworld.com. Please take a minute and review the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.